So last time we left off, we were talking about what makes a good segment and what makes a bad segment. And the big thing about a good segment, it has to be identifiable, which means that the segment itself um, has consistency, that essentially it truly is a market. By the same token, that segment has to be separate from other segments. Because if you have huge overlap between segments, uh, guess what? You're going to have people coming at you asking for features that have nothing to do with each other. And not only that, but you're leaving entryways for other people to enter those segments, and it just becomes a big, huge mess. You have no focus. And if you have no focus, what's the point of doing segmentation? Is it going to be big enough so I can make money? Is it going to be stable enough? Like, for example, a whole bunch of people after the Zika virus came out started trying to come out with products to capitalize off that. And as it turns out, it's gone away. People aren't worried about it anymore. Uh, is it going to be responsive to my actions? And also, uh, can I get into that market? I mean, are there barriers? Like, for example, say you have a great product and you want to go into China. Well, China has its own laws and rules and things like that. And quite frankly, when I was working there, now granted this was 10 years ago, but you had to grease some palms. uh, which I forgot what they called it at the time, something like service fees or something like that. Uh, but the other thing is, once you get into that market, how are you going to close the door behind you? How are you going to keep, and this is why lock in, lock out is so important, because you need to lock out the competition and lock in your customers. For example, I had a startup in my TEM 400 class, and what they wanted to do was do an app for hair cutters, meaning for mobile hair cutters. You use the app, and then they come to your place and do it for you. And so this solves the problem of when you can't get your hair cut. Or not only that, but for people with weddings and things like that, it takes away the inconvenience and the stress. Uh, and uh, and I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the problem with that app is, how are they going to lock out other people? I mean, this is a fairly easy thing to copy. And so that was my challenge to them. Here's an example of what I mean by of homogeneous and heterogeneous variables. For those of you who've never had it, kimchi is a fermented cabbage salad that Koreans eat. It is very, very hot. Personally, I don't like it. And the way they ferment it is they dig holes in the ground and bury the pot in these clay pots and leave them there. And Dr. Cho knows this intimately because when he's 9 years old, he used to go out in the winter with this big pickaxe and pick up the frozen ground so he could plant his mother's pots. So yeah, there's something personal about it. But anyway, in terms of how much you like kimchi or the number of eaters, clearly there are more Koreans than Americans, and you have two very distinct markets there. And that's the one who grew up with it and one who has to learn about it. On the other hand, if I decide, okay, I'm going to use my market of non-athletic and athletic people, well, the thing is, non-athletic and athletic is, weakly related to how much you like kimchi, and so they overlap. And so if you try to market according to those variables, you're not going to be able to, because they're all mixed together. It's a bad descriptor. An end user profile is when you can write up a persona, when you can write up a summary that tells you everything you want to know about your customer. And so here's an example, and you can read that over. The thing about end user profiles is it helps you define your marketing mix. It's like, who are you going to sell to? M33, which is one of our startup companies here, and Brendan Smith's company is making a smart desk. They've basically taken all the computer stuff, meaning all the wires, the display, and everything else, and integrated it into a desk. And the desk is portable. You just close a couple of legs, and you can be up and running within 5 minutes, which is a classic Apple model. The thing about this desk is it costs $3,500. Not a lot of people can afford that. So are you going to go after the common Dell user? Well, no, because those people want to spend $500 to $700, and all they're going to do is whine about the price. The analogy, so they started thinking through it, and the analogy they use is, look, the Dell users are the Toyota Corolla drivers. That's not the people we want. We want the Land Rover drivers. That's the market we want to go after. And so subsequently they're advertising, well, the price is already set, how they're going to do distribution, their sales tactics, all of it revolves around that. And it's because, and it revolves around it by understanding the personality of who that customer is. In terms of markets, your segmentation will discover markets, and those markets be gap, niches, or pain. Gaps are those with unfulfilled needs. Niches are those within our existing market. You find a little concentration of customers. Like in the early days of cars, Henry Ford said you can have a car any color you want as long as it's black. And so basically you had this big market of car buyers, but there was a dissatisfied bunch who color made a difference to. And subsequently Alfred P. Sloan, who started GM, introduced that. And of course, there are those markets which address a specific pain. In terms of targeting, you work from kind of the outside in. And that's that you think about, okay, so we've picked a certain market, but how does it break down? So it's basically a bullseye diagram. First, it's what industry am I going after? What large demographic group? And that's my overall market. Then my totally addressable market is that part of that larger market who my product is going to relate to. My served available market is essentially that part of the total addressable market that I think that I can talk to. Let's face it, when you have a total addressable market, you're not going to be able to, your communication, your promotion, your pricing and everything isn't going to make everybody in that market happy. But I can reach a certain number, and that's my served available market. And based on my served available market, who's going to respond to it? And that's my target market. The thing is, you need numbers to back it up. And here's an example, and this is an example out of a startup book of a group that wanted to create streaming Korean videos. And so, and they wanted to use it in the United States. And so their overall market had to do with, people who watch in the United States streaming Korean videos. So that's their overall market. And then subsequently they started breaking down the subsets. And those subsets are, okay, we're not going to go after everybody in the United States. We're going to go after the Koreans who watch Korean TV. Makes sense, considering all these programs are in Korean. And that's why you pick bigger. I mean, you could go after like non-native Koreans, but how big is that market? And that's what I mean by good segments, bad segments. And so they found out females were more likely to watch. And so they just kept breaking it down number by number until finally, based on all those parameters listed up there, they found out what their target market was going to be. And it's about 400,000 people. So the thing is, when you put together a good strategy, your segments not only should it represent an opportunity, it should match what your company does. Because if you can't be good at it, what's the point? And so these descriptor variables and everything else, it all plays together. And so that concludes our segmentation lecture.